Good morning, you're very welcome along to Monday morning's OTB AM, and what a weekend that was. We have Galway finally being crowned as Leinster Hurling champions. We had an unbelievable weekend for Irish athletics in Győr in Hungary over the course of the weekend, and of course football's coming home. And when I say football's coming home, the festival of football that is the Super 8s is about to hit our calendars over the next couple of days, and I'm delighted to say that Anthony Moyles and guest Michael Quinlivan are joining us in studio this morning. Lads, we will get to England, we will talk about the second most important arrival of football coming home, but there is sort of kind of an arrival of the whetting of the appetite this morning, isn't there, about what's to come over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, there is. There's definitely the papers and everyone else is kind of getting very enthusiastic about it. Just chatting with Michael, it seems a little bit disingenuous to the rest of the championship, because it's like, okay, now we can start. Let's get all that other stuff out of the way. But as Michael was saying, you have a situation where you've pretty much all Division 1 teams and one team who's coming up into Division 1 next year. And the really only surprise, I'd say, from a GAA perspective was that Mayo didn't make it. So you've all the top guys, and everything will be kind of glossed over now, which again, as I say, is a little bit disingenuous. But from a supporter's perspective and a fan's perspective watching it, there's some cracking games. Yeah, for sure. Michael, you're very welcome along. Thanks a million for coming in this morning. You were down in Portlaoise on Saturday, presumably looking at it thinking you'd love to be out there and love to be out there over the next couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, there's a small bit of jealousy going on there. Right? You have three, as a player, you'd have 3 extra games, the biggest spotlight. I think it's kind of starting to maybe overshadow the provincial championships, and it's really going to be a treat this year to see what happens, because we have no form book to go by, we've no previous history. Every team is going to be tested. The only 2 teams that are going to get through in each group into a semi-final, they're going to have to play well to get there, because maybe in years gone by the likes of a Dublin or a Kerry could waltz into an All-Ireland semi-final on the back of an easy provincial championship and really do their business when they get to there, whereas now they have to be at it for 3 weeks in a row. And as you said, from a supporter's perspective, it's going to be incredible, I think. Yeah,
it's going to be great. Do you subscribe to the idea that, like, the rich get richer and all of this, that there will be a gap opening up between the teams? Say if you take a team like Kildare, do you think that when you look at it, say from next year when you'll be up against them in Division 2, do you think that like experience of a Super 8 will stand to them and you'll feel that yourselves are at a bit of a disadvantage?
Yeah, well, the one thing that would stand out to me was they get another bedding-in period now. They get another 3 games against 3 top-class opposition, that by the time they come back to Division 2 next year, they have that under the belt. They've maybe tried 2 or 3 things during those games that they know they can now take on into next year. And that's obviously going to make it more difficult for the teams who are already gone out of the championship.
Yeah, it's going to be one hell. I feel sorry for the people who have to schedule all the TV matches over the next couple of weeks. What do they do next weekend? They've got 2 unbelievable hurling games, as well as the arrival of the Super 8s, which every game people will be interested in because you get that novelty value of it.
Start giving the games some more channels.
There you go. There you go.
That might be an
idea. When you speak about watching sport on TV over the course of the weekend, the one thing which we'll be chatting about with Kevin Kilbane and John Duggan a little bit later on is England. It is the phenomenon that has been this World Cup, which has been pure theatre. It has been just like buckets of popcorn every day if you wanted it. It's just been cracker after cracker after cracker. And even though England versus Sweden was a pretty poor game, there's always a novelty value of England, isn't there?
Yeah, I think we were chatting beforehand, and what Southgate reminds me of is the time where the Rugby Football Union in England were in a bit of disarray. They had an awful image. They put in Stuart Lancaster, paired it back, made them a likeable team again, and they've since brought it on from there. Southgate seems like the same sort of character that the FA have gone for, and since then he's shown that there's a bit more about him than the waistcoat, obviously. Yeah, he's really bringing that back. But yeah, look, it's fantastic when they're still involved, because you get the buzz. They bring colour to it. While it can be an awkward experience for us just across the Irish Channel, I think it's no doubt going to add something to the World Cup since the hosts are gone.
Yeah, we are trying very hard to try and find some sort of flaw in this English team. I know obviously we can point to the English press trying to do the same thing, but I'm just trying to look at this team and say, who's the really unlikable character in this team, and I'm struggling to find one.
You're waiting for someone just to put their hand up and go, yes, that's it. You know, that's the pantomime villain that we've been looking for. But it is, listen, I'm happy. We were chatting last week and I was saying, will I cash out of my bet? So I'm still rolling on. But actually now I'm kind of going, I really don't want to win this. I really don't want to win this because it's like 66 is overplayed I don't know how many times. So like really you'd have to sit through this now for the next 30, 40 years, who knows how long it would be. It would be hard to swallow, but at the same time they're a good team. I agree with Michael. I think Southgate, actually it's funny because I know he spoke to Lancaster at lengths about the whole thing, and obviously himself and him seem to be actually good pals about it. So I'd love to see him do well, and there's obviously individuals, great stories within the team, you know, not only Harry Kane but some of the rest of the players, brilliant stories from where they came in lower league clubs, but I think it will be a stretch too far for them. I think it might just be in the end, but at the same time, every time I just can't see by past France, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd be devastated if you happen to be correct there. If it just happened to fall short at the end, my heart would bleed. Let's tell you what's coming up this morning on OTB AM. We're with you until about 9:30 this morning. Sports pages coming your way in just a moment or two. Plenty of coverage of the weekend's hurling and athletics, as well as the Gaelic football and the soccer we were talking about there. The World Cup, John Duggan in Russia. He's moved on to St. Petersburg. He's going to both semi-finals. He's working hard as ever. John Duggan, we'll see him and hopefully a new hat at 8:15. At 8:30 we'll do a deeper dive into the Super 8s. We'll remind you of the two groups and build up really to the Festival of Football over the next 4 weeks. At 10:09 then, Michael Verney of the Irish Independent will join us to look back on Galway's win yesterday, despite that roaring back from Kilkenny. It was a very, very impressive seeing out of the match from Galway in Thurles. And World Cup, Kilbane there at 9:10. He's landed back on Irish soil, I've been informed, so we'll get his first takes on all the things he's seen in Russia over the past couple of weeks at around 9:10. But now though, it's time for the back pages.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
We'll start with the Irish Independent this morning, and tribesmen out of reach is the headline here. The potential of Galway's forwards is almost limitless. That's a quote from Eamon Sweeney's piece that they carry on the back page, and it's true, isn't it? I mean, it's like, I hate to make the comparison straight away between Gaelic football here, but it's hard not to compare it to the Dubs and the peak Dublin depth that they had over the last 2 or 3 years when the likes of Paul Flynn and Bernard Brogan were coming off the bench.
Yeah, there was a couple of moments yesterday where you just kind of looked and you went, well, there's All Ireland winners versus a team that are just trying to get to that point. You know, just small little moments in the game where you just, okay, we're not. I don't mean this in a. I'm sure Cody would completely disagree, but nearly. You nearly know as a player, like when they got back to within, I think it was 3, and then they could have nearly kind of got it back level. I think it was a point nearly where you're kind of saying Galway just increased it again, and that's what Dublin always had in the locker, where they could just get you, and then you know you're nearly there, and then they'd kick it into another gear. And that's what that's goal. Like, I mean, the power of them, the precision, the skill, obviously, but they can beat you any kind of way, you know. And whatever way you bring it to them, they're saying, "Okay, we're happy enough to do this." Yeah. So that is a scary thing for I think the rest of the championship.
Yeah, like they're one of the only forward lines that in the country where the Galway backs don't have to look; they can literally just launch it down there, and they're confident that the likes of Johnny Glynn, Conor Whelan, they'll battle for their own ball, and most of the time they're coming out on top, and that's a huge, not relief for their back line, but it doesn't have to be as precise going into their forward line. I mean, yesterday they brought on Jason Flynn and Conor Cooney. Conor Cooney was the outstanding forward in the country last year. I know Joe Canning was Hurler of the Year, but I mean, up until that point it was pretty neck and neck. Yeah. And as you're saying, they seem to just be coming again. They're just after winning a Leinster under-21 title. And I don't know how they're building them out there. Like they don't seem to be anything under 6 foot going in there at the moment.
Well, that's the thing. I wonder, can he make it in the Galway team if you're under 6 foot?
No, you have to be very, very good.
Yeah, outstanding. It's the Johnny Glynn element yesterday as well is just another interesting facet of all of it. And I guess we're at a point where we've seen these teams play so much, and it's great. It's like you can actually get a deep dive into the team, how they're setting up, how they're outlined, how Micheál Donoghu's actually setting them up, which is kind of a new experience. It's like I've got a massive hurling brain all of a sudden because we've seen these teams play a lot of times, which is great for the game.
But like you think of Galway, you say a number of years ago, even say 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, they were always that kind of nearly team, you know, and they were always a team that people said, oh yeah, they've got great quality, great bit of skill, but they let you down type thing, you know, that when it really comes to the battle. Now they turned Kilkenny over a good few times over the last few years, but then when they came into say playing some of the Munster teams, but O'Donoghue deserves massive credit because he has put massive steel into them, but also resolve, and the fact of they have. It's not an arrogance. It's they're very, very confident in their own ability, and I think that comes from the thing is whatever you throw at them, they're well able to handle it. You know, so if you want to get really physical with them, they'll take you on all day on that, and that is a bad move considering the size of the fellas that they have, but also skill wise and everything else wise. And O'Donoghue, I think he is. I think he's tactically he's very astute as well, but he also seems to be a very, very good man manager. You know, like Galway is not an easy county with what goes on between the football and the hurling, and even the supporters. They're very, very divisive. You know, some follow one, others don't follow the other, and he has seemed to have kind of pulled all that together from a certain perspective. So it's. You know, I think it's something to fear for the other teams that are coming out.
Derek McGrath said it last night in the Sunday game, just about how ruthless Michael Donoghue is, that you see the affable character on the outside, and that's what all the best managers have. They have that ruthless streak. When it comes down to it, they'll really put you to the sword. But I think a word on Kilkenny, Galway were playing hurling that was out of this world in the first half. I mean, but yeah, Kilkenny keep plugging away, and with 10 minutes to go, you look on the scoreboard and they're a point down, and you're going, what is going on here? It's been a feature for 20 years under Brian Cody. I mean, how they keep coming back, they keep plugging away, they just don't give in. And he'll have been really pleased, I presume, with how they came back into that game. Albeit Galway stepped on the gas, as we said, in the second half and put it out of sight. But I mean, is there any greater sight than them coming roaring back into a game that I know as a tip man it can be tough to watch some of them at the best of times, but you have to admire it too.
Yeah, like we talk about Galway's depth, but Colin Fendy and Richie Hogan coming off the bench. I mean, I would not be surprised to see that match yesterday being the All-Ireland final once again. As I say, we'll chat to Michael Verney of the Indo a little bit later on. We'll move on to the front page of the Irish Examiner sports section. Some good artwork here. It's super stuff. The headline, Irish Examiner writers and analysts preview football's Super 8s.
How long have they had that cartoon ready, do you think? They probably haven't had to change much. Yeah, maybe take out the Mayo jersey.
I see the Kildare one is the smallest one. There was just a quick scribble of Kildare in there.
Frozone in at the back, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You've also got Paddy Kelly saying Cork football, where does one even begin? And like we'll get to this a little bit later on, but where does one begin with Cork? Like when you think about 2015 and the way they should have beaten Kerry down in Killarney that day, like the 3-year downfall is as quick a downfall as I've ever seen.
I was in Portlaoise at the weekend, and Tyrone just suffocated the life out of them.
Yeah.
I mean, the first half, they actually played reasonably well. The only thing that was really letting them down was there were some loose hand passes, and every single time that happened, you could hear the life being drained out of the fans and the team itself. They broke the line a couple of times, got in for scores, didn't take the scores, and Tyrone turned them over, and that's the biggest no-no against Tyrone. Don't give them the oxygen of having them turning you over in your forward line, going up the far end and kicking a point, because that's what they feed on. You know, that's their game. I know a lot of people have been talking about maybe it wasn't as nice to watch as the match before it, but you have to be impressed by how efficient Tyrone were with everything they did. There was no fuss. They played the way they know how to play, and they're going to be a match for anyone in that group in the Super 8. Like,
in a way, the result that you had against Cork is probably the strangest result of the entire summer.
Yeah. And the thing is, they played, like, we can take a look at ourselves and say we played really poorly, but sometimes you actually have to give credit. I thought Cork played excellent the same day. I mean, I met Dr. Khan afterwards, and he reckoned it was the best performance they'd put in 4 or 5 years.
Right.
and you thought, Jesus, maybe this is the start of something new, and then Kerry just bring him crashing back down to earth, unfortunately.
But for the life of me, I can't tie up those two performances, because albeit what you're saying about Tyrone, I just thought the match was so lacking in intensity. It was like a challenge game. There was no hit. I think the first decent hit was about 20 odd minutes into the game. Tyrone, I thought, were playing the game really in about third gear. I was at the Tyrone Meath game at Port Tolson, and obviously it was completely different. It was flat out. Everyone, there was fellas being literally peeled off the ground. Where I don't really think the Tyrone always knew they were never in trouble, and I just thought the Cork lack of fight was just something that was amazing to watch from such a proud county. But I spoke to Derek Kavanagh after it, and he was just saying the issues going on within the county are just massive, but they've been coming for years. And I don't know. You're obviously there. I don't know if that was you guys were looking at the kind of the history of the Cork jersey and stuff, and you just got caught that day.
No, I think it was just more. Sometimes it just doesn't come for you on a day, and you can try and find however many excuses you want, but sometimes you just have to hold your hand up and go, no, today wasn't our day, and Cork found, Luke Connolly caught fire the same day against us, so it's disappointing when you've seen what's happened since. Now, thankfully, we put in some sort of a show for probably 50 minutes against Mayo, but again, that's only a moral victory at the end of the day. But yeah, I think they've a long winter ahead, and it'll be interesting to see what Cork you see next year in the league.
Yeah, it's going to be very. It seems that they're a team that if they take one bad body blow, the whole thing crumbles. Is that too harsh to say? Maybe they haven't gone through the experience of actually winning tight Munster finals yet, and it's only that, and it's only then that they will be able to survive an onslaught from Kerry in the early stages, or Tyrone in the second quarter on Saturday.
Yeah, well, when you come through off the back of a big loss, so what was it, 17 points against Kerry, the small things have to go your way at the start of a game, and there was probably 4 or 5 small moments in the first half that drained the momentum out of Cork, drained the life out of them, and after that it's so hard to change that. At half time you're 6-7 points down against a team that wants to counter attack against you. It's not a place that you want to be, and unfortunately when you're playing Tyrone, they just don't give you a sniff if they're in that position. I don't know how many times they've ever been beaten from someone coming from behind, so they had to come out fighting, I think, in that first half, and it just didn't fall for them, I don't think. I know I made a prediction that there might be a kick in him before the game, and that's looking pretty silly now, unfortunately.
We all make silly predictions. On the front page of the Irish Times Sports section, it's Galway clearly the dominant force as Cats are beaten twice, and Croatia have the power to beat England despite taxing run of games. Malachy Clerkin there, and David Heitner writing on the front page of the Irish Times Sports Monday. The back page of the Times Ireland edition then is Galway skin Cats. Knox saves the best for last. An unbelievable conclusion in Ballyliffin yesterday to the end of the Dubai duty-free Irish Open. Russell Knox, with a 40-yard putt twice to win the Irish Open. It was absolutely unbelievable. So I'm not sure were you watching it but it was one of those weeks where obviously RTE were carrying the Sky commentary, and at every turn the Sky commentators were just absolutely bemused by the beauty of County Donegal, and in the end they got a pretty beautiful conclusion to things. The 40-yard putt kind of felt like I don't know how to describe it, almost like bonus territory for Russell Knox near the end of that yesterday, and then suddenly the pressure was on when he had to do it again, and it was unbelievable stuff. So we might play a few videos from Ballyliffin a little bit later on in the show. The other story then at the back of the Times, which we might turn to now, is Healy claims second gold. This is Sarah Healy, obviously the Irish athlete who was part of an unbelievable performance in Gure at the weekend from the under-18 team. Of course, Sophie O'Sullivan, daughter of Sonia, was one of the other competitors at the weekend. We'll just cut now to a Sonia O'Sullivan video from the weekend. This is with thanks to the European Athletics Twitter account. She was speaking in Gure after Sophie won her medal.
She's very relaxed, and I see she's really enjoyed herself here. She's made a lot of friends, not just on the Irish team, but every night after the races she's gone out and she's done warm down laps with the other girls in the races, and she's just been really friendly and had a really great time. And you know, I think that's what it's all about. You know, you're competitive on the track, but off the track you make some great friends, and that's what kind of keeps you coming back every year, because you want to meet up with the people that you like to hang around with.
And at this age, if you see the girls running now already 2:04 in those times, at the age of 15, 16, do you know back in the time you ran, were those times already common?
Yeah, I think people can run that when they're that age, yeah. But I think as long as they're doing it naturally and not like forcing it. So I think, you know, if you're in a race like this, but I think it's not really great for people to be chasing times and to be always out trying to run fast. I think it's at this age it's most important to be racing and practice racing, you know, rather than getting fast times, and because the fast times will come. You know, there's no real bonuses for running fast times at this age. You need to be able to do that when you're a little bit older.
Yeah, great stuff there from Sonia. Great attitude there, that it's talking about the under 18 level, where it's like participation is still highly important, despite the fact that you're absolutely unbelievable at what you do. It's still important to keep the head down and just enjoy what you're doing for the time being.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's absolutely fantastic, and some brilliant results over the weekend. It bodes well for our future potential, because like we all remember the times sitting there watching Olympics or Europeans and stuff like this, and you see fellas just coming and like, I mean, it's been a while since we've had a real kind of star, I suppose since Sonia, really, you know, where we've had someone that we can really get behind. So no, it's fantastic, it really is.
I can remember watching Sonia in 5th class down in the school hall, and I think I'd say half the country has the exact same memory. Yeah, look, it's brilliant. What a weekend. For Irish athletics.
This is that's a brilliant juxtaposition of photos there. Sonia there and Sophie. Sonia actually presented Sophie with the medal at the weekend, which was a nice touch. So she won silver in the 800 metres and is a former under-17 Australian champion at that level as well. So, like, of course, it's fantastic to have her in the Irish uniform and performing well. The decision doesn't have to be made until senior level, I presume, regarding what nationality she will choose. It's going to be the next David Clifford situation. The Laker Olga then, Sport TG Cahir tweet there. Sarah Healy with 2 gold medals, 1500 and 3000 metre goals. Both runs were championship records, which is absolutely outrageous. And then Rashida Adeleke, who won the 200 metres at the age of 15, also with an unbelievable championship record-breaking performance. These aren't just novelty wins. These aren't just the luck of the Irish, the plucky Irish coming through when everything was in their favour. These are outrageous performances, and it is all about the kind of potential that's there. But like, in and of itself, it's an unbelievable achievement.
Absolutely. You'd hope that kind of Sarah Healy's achievements aren't kind of overshadowed a little bit, because Sonia's daughter will obviously be the story, but that is phenomenal to have 2 goals. Like, I mean, unbelievable. She's an unbelievable athlete. I kind of need to delve into it a bit more, because I didn't know a whole pile about it. But like, obviously, you just keep these kids injury free and progress and everything else. It bodes massively well. Obviously, massive where to go to college, probably over to the States or whatever it is like this. But it's great. It really is great, and it's as I say, it's something to look forward to.
Yeah, like the commentary on Eurosport yesterday, they were talking about an island nation who always manages to punch above its weight, but that this was just a different level of punching above its weight. And sometimes we do forget. Sometimes we get frustrated and we forget that what a talent somebody like Thomas Barr is, and that we're like unbelievably lucky to have him, and outrageously lucky to have had someone like Sonia in the past, obviously at such a high level. And obviously when it gets to an international level, once it gets to a senior level, it's going to be tougher. But when you're like setting championship records, it bodes very well.
Yeah, such a tough sport too. Like as an individual sport, it's a completely different thing that we're not used to in this country, I think. We're a lot more team sport dominated. It's a much tougher thing to be fighting yourself nearly all the time. And for 3 athletes who are so young to have turned out and done that, it's incredible, and hopefully it means it bodes very well for the future, and hopefully they can carry it through into the senior level, and we might have some more memories to come then.
Absolutely, it's true. They'll be pushing each other on as well, despite the fact that it's obviously an individual setup. We'll move on to the Irish news and have a look at the back page this morning. They're leading with Armagh, who are left to reflect on what might have been. That's Brendan Crossan's piece at the front page of the sport section of the Irish news this morning. Armagh, like, it's there's no such thing as a moral victory in the qualifiers, particularly no such thing as a moral victory for Kieran McGeaney. But geez, their qualifier run again this year was very impressive.
Yeah, it's similar enough to Meath against Tyrone. Like, their fans must have been coming away from Portlaoise without a qualm. There wasn't anything there that they didn't throw at Roscommon, and sometimes you just come up short. It was blood and thunder, championship, the heat, everything. It was an unbelievable game of football. The amount of kick passing that was in the first game in Portlaoise compared to the second was
like night and day.
Yeah, completely. And I think the penalty was a huge moment. Huge moment. If they could have got ahead, I know a couple of years ago they played Westmeath right before they played us last year. They played Westmeath in a qualifier, and with 10 minutes to go, they were put down to 14 early in the first half. With 10 minutes to go, they dropped everyone behind the ball and played a counter-attacking game. And I reckon they were set up to maybe try and do that for the last 10 minutes against Armagh or against Roscommon. And the problem for them was they just weren't ahead, and if they could have gotten ahead, they maybe could have implemented that, and they did it so successfully against Westmeath last year.
And Clare as well, the weekend before last. Like, I mean, it was once they got in front, they weren't letting up. But let's just remind each other of the graphic, remind everyone of the graphic that we had up on screen last week. Here it is again, Kieran McGinney in the qualifiers. It was an 86% win ratio, 25 from 29. That's now 25 from 30 after the weekend's defeat. Like, is there such thing as being a qualifier manager?
Well, I think what he is he's a very pragmatic manager, right? So he's a guy who realises, and he doesn't truck with this whole idea of, okay, I play a certain way. Like, I mean, it's really interesting what Michael was saying, because there was a massive swing in that game. Vernon came forward, a bit of a sloppy hand pass, which went over one of the Armagh fellas. Roscommon counter-attacked, got the goal. And it was a massive swing in momentum. Even, I think it was around 8 points to 11 or something at that stage. And it went 1-8 to 11, something like that. And then there was, so there was some small little things. And I agree, McGeaney is the type of fella, and I heard someone mention this, that Armagh may be better suited to actually playing teams outside of Ulster, because they don't particularly like coming up against, say a Fermanagh type defence, who are majorly back in there, 13 or 14 players behind the ball, because they are quite a free-flowing team when they get going. And they have 5s and 7s who like to kick points as well as their inside fellas, and they've scorers all over the pitch. Like, it was amazing to see different fellas coming up yesterday with a point. So they're a team that can play it, and I think he's trying to hone in on this idea that, well, yes, I play my style to get ahead, and then if needs be, we'll close up shop. So he's pragmatic about that. He doesn't just say, no, we'll keep going, and if we're 4 ahead of you, we'll be 12 ahead of you. He says if we're 2 or 3 up, well, then that's fine. And that's why I think when it comes into the qualifiers, he does all of his homework, obviously, on the opposition, which every manager does, but he really suits the style and says, okay, this is how we can go with this. And I think he alters his style to a certain degree for the opposition. And I think they were unlucky, I think they were very unlucky.
The first half, especially, as you were saying, like, they played so well in the first half, and to go in 2 points down was so tough on them, because, I mean, Mernon was unmarkable at full forward. Rory Grugan was kicking points from everywhere. And you just felt that they needed a boost of being 2 or 3 points up, and maybe then changing the style in the second half. But in fairness to Roscommon, they got the scores at crucial times. Enda Smith stood up with 2 unbelievable goals. But even before that, when they brought it back to a point, he picked up a ball probably 10 yards outside the 45, went past 2 or 3 players and drew a foul on the 21. And from that, Roscommon kicked 1-2. I saw afterwards, I was watching as all their fans, flew onto the pitch, to the detriment of the Tyrone warm-up, actually. Not that you'd know it, but I saw, what struck me was Lee McHale came out, and he went over to Enda Smith, and Enda was kind of waiting for maybe a bit of a hug, and what he got was maybe 2 or 3 pushes in the chest. And what it looked like to me was him saying to Enda Smith, like, that's what you can do. That's what you can do. He said, that's what, when you stick your mind to it, that's what you can be, that player. And it really struck home to me that, if they want to really have a mark on the Super 8s, he needs to be at his best.
Donegal and the height, I mean, that's a huge opportunity for them.
I think it's a Roscommon thing. I think if McHale could go around to every single player.
You can see on screen there McHale chatting to end after.
Yeah.
It looks borderline confrontation.
Well, I think I get the impression, because I watched him a good bit last year in the qualifiers. I did a good few games for Newstalk, and I got that sense. McHale actually stands right up where the forwards are, and he just watches the forwards. He stays, and he's always cajoling them and talking to them and everything from the sideline. But you get that sense from Roscommon that they kind of need that dig in the chest a couple of times to really, because you know, as a good Armagh, where if it wasn't for Smith, who McGeaney will look back on it and go, oh, a few lapses of conversation or the communication and discussion around of who have we got, where's the players, because 3 or 4 times we were just caught ball watching. Roscommon fellas Smith for the goal, he just slipped in behind. We mentioned the Verney one. So just there was a couple of things where McGeaney will look back and go, you know, we actually could have slipped that, but at the same time McStay will be delighted because there was a few moments in that game where they looked out on their feet, and the likes of Smith just dragged them back into it, and they kicked some unbelievable points. Like, I mean, unbelievable raking scores, great confidence, you know.
I don't think I've ever seen a performance like Mark Shields as well.
Yeah.
With the wing back from Armagh, started at wing half back, went in man marking job on Carl Craig, who was causing so many problems to the Armagh full back line. Started the second half as a wing forward and then ended up in the full forward line and got a goal and won 4 frees. I mean, I've never, like, is there anybody else in the country can do that? Go from being a tight marking fullback to a free flow and full forward in the space of 20 minutes. Incredible. And Armagh, while they'll be disappointed, they've found a lot of players this year in the absence of what they had last year, and that can only be good for them going into next year's Division 2. That Division 2 is a minefield next year. And I think Roscommon could shock a few people in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think so. The falling of your home fixture, and we'll get into this later on, is so pivotal to your hopes in this, and the fact that the 2 provincial winners go up against each other next weekend as well is another huge facet. We'll rattle through the rest of the papers. The last one for me is just the back page of the Racing Post. Sweden win is green light for Lions plunge. So punters have been baiting into England over the last couple of days. They've already been pretty short odds for the entire tournament. The punters have foreseen the fact that football may be coming home. Moyles, you've got the rest of the back pages?
Yeah, well, on that, we've got Lovren saying that Croatia, we don't fear the English. So whether they do or whether they don't.
If I was Dejan Lovren after what Harry Kane has done to him throughout the whole Premier League season, I'd be a bit fearful now, to be honest.
Well, he's always going to say that. He's always going to come out with that one. But it's it is.
Mayor down in Wembley when they played him in the league. Yeah. He was whipped off after about 40 minutes. So I'd say, rein in your tongue there, lad.
Yeah. And that's going to play in your mind. You know, like, I mean, as you're coming up against an individual player who you haven't gone well against, and it's like, so then you've got obviously the Irish Daily Mail, no mistakes. Galway hold off Cats to keep their Leinster title. We've covered that already. You've got the Sun, Michael D. Huggins. The president is so pleased for the tribe. There he is. I'd say Michael D might need a stool to get up to half of the Galway lads to give them a hug, because he isn't the biggest man in the world.
He's currently licking his lips with a Saudi takeover of Galway United, and both the hurlers and footballers going well. I'd say Michael D has never had more fun in his life.
Yeah, you've got the Star then. You've obviously the picture of the girls there, Golden Girls it says, and then you've got the Scalded Cats, which we covered as well. Kilkenny feeling the heat, which I don't know if they'd be feeling the heat, to be honest. I think Cody be quietly happy and looking forward to obviously getting rattled at Limerick, isn't it? Yeah. So the Irish Mirror Sport a bit there about opportunity knocks at Ballyliffin for the Scot, and you've got this will mean more than 1966. Wow. It will.
It probably would, to be fair. It's a far inferior team. Well, like the whole home World Cup, though. I mean, like, surely winning it at home means more than winning it in Russia. But then again, there is the whole element of doing it as underdogs.
Is Jesse Lingard going to be the next Bobby Charlton? That's the question you need to ask yourself.
The question sounds weird in itself. Yeah. It's remarkable. Like, sticking to the idea of like the 1966, the process of football coming home obviously just wasn't there. I mean, it has the whole parody element, this England World Cup journey. I don't think there was people in 1966 thinking this would be hilarious, wouldn't it, if England won the World Cup, whereas at the moment there is genuine comic value to the whole idea of football coming home.
Has the song gone back to #1 in the UK?
It has. I saw it on the Capital FM chart. I don't think that's the official chart in the UK.
I think I saw a tweet there a couple of days ago that reckoned that Paddy may be the worst singer ever to make it to #1 in the UK. Look, the parody element, they've welcomed it. They've welcomed all the chat that has come from it. They've been a lot more open about it. They opened up the whole squad to interviews at the start. The one thing about England, you have to get the media on side.
Yeah.
Because everything is a trial by media over there, and they seem to have done that. They're. It's so hard to say it, but they're such a likeable team. Like there's no, you never look at, as you're saying, you never look and go, who's the baddie?
No.
Now, if one of them makes a blunder against Croatia, I'm sure they'll be all over him. But yeah, like it's going to be interesting viewing for the next week.
Just on that point, we'll have a look at this.
Seriously though, it fucking so isn't. It fucking is not. It is not. You fucking know it, and I know.
It's not coming home, according to Noel Gallagher. He's not happy.
Liam tweeted following that, saying, kind of having a bit of a pop, saying he wouldn't even sing the song. You all know it is coming home. So, I mean, they can't.
Why? What's him so upset?
Like I don't know. It must be, maybe it's just a realism. Maybe it's like Belgium and France are by definition better than us. And
I thought it was a city thing, but there's plenty of city. Well, there's a sprinkle of them.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be the most happy man in the UK if Raheem Sterling ended his 1005-day goal duck for England the next day.
I don't even know, would he, to be honest.
Well, once Liam's rode in behind the England team, then suddenly Noel has to go the opposite way. Let's just have a look at a couple of those UK back pages. The front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section goes like so. It is, this is the Ferrari's Dirty Tricks. They've got a special World Cup section there as well, which goes all 1966, as you'd imagine. And then the Guardian sports section leads with taking the plunge. England start to talk of going all the way. The UK Mirror then, we'll have a look at Southgate. This could be bigger than 66, as we said. Our World Cup winning heroes are rightly revered, but now with modern global social media, it will be crazier. Okay, bigger than 60. I can see the point there, that the frenzy would be more incredible. Like, let's also not forget the idea that football is a far more ingrained part of culture now than it was in 1966. It's in a completely different place.
But you do know what that means. That means it's just going to be in everyone else's face so much more with social media and everything else. It's like, no matter where you were in 66, there was probably a part of the world where you were like, England? Who? World Cup? No. But now, not a chance.
I think that kind of shows what we're talking about with the media, though, isn't it? Like, when you read the subheading, you actually realise what he's talking about. But all you see blatantly in front of you is this could be bigger than 66 Southgate. So
Yeah, it's very. You can easily take a very one-dimensional look at it, and maybe there's more to the tabloids in the UK than meets the eye sometimes. Let's finally have a look at Marca, because they've got an interesting story here that Luis Enrique is set to be the next Spain boss. So Rubiala's press conference is due at 11:30 this morning, followed by a board meeting, then another press conference. So that'll be an interesting element to today's agenda. But at the time, for now, all I'm hearing is that tune in my ear. All I'm hearing is the idea that John Duggan may be on Skype. Hello, St. Petersburg.
Owen, Michael and Anthony, good morning.
What is that? That looks amazing. Every single time you're on this show, there is a new architectural wonder behind you. Do explain what's going on behind your head right now.
Well, this is a very important building behind me, lads. It's the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. This was the home of the Romanovs, the Tsars of Russia. This was the residence of the monarchy in Russia. It was the capital of Russia, St. Petersburg, until the October Revolution in 1917, which happened here at the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. So where Lenin and the Bolsheviks took control. Of course, this city was under siege in World War II by the Germans. And we nearly had 1 million people dying here in terms of civilians, starvation, huge issues. And including Vladimir Putin's baby brother was one person who died. So
John, it just looked like Captain Jack Sparrow walked behind you.
I was making a serious point, so I don't actually know what's going on behind me. So this was Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, the Venice of the North in Russia here, and already touched by how beautiful a place it is. And of course, another bit of history to be made tomorrow when France play Belgium in the semi-final.
Yeah, it's going to be one hell of an encounter. You saw Belgium or France? You saw France in the flesh last Friday.
No, I saw Belgium against Brazil.
Sorry.
In Kazan, and very impressed by the way Roberto Martinez, who's never lost a competitive game, to be fair to him, as a Belgian manager, set up his team, changed his outlook with the bringing 4 players into defence and playing Kevin De Bruyne as a false 9, Romelu Lukaku out on the right, much more imposing in a position closer to his own goal, and Belgium capitalised on Brazil's errors to win the game, especially in the first half, and they held on.
Yeah, like Roberto Martinez, obviously the sea change, I'd imagine, in the public perception back home in Belgium has been completely different to how it was at the start of the tournament. It was like we had Christophe Tour, the Belgian journalist, on before the show, who would have he'd be very well sourced and can very well sum up the public opinion of him. And it was like, would I be going too far to say it was dire before the tournament, John, that people just didn't have any respect for the man?
I don't know if it will be that extreme. Oh, and they scored 43 goals in the qualifiers. They did what they needed to do to get here. I suppose the worry and the fear with Belgium is that they'll flop again and that they'll waste a Skullduggan generation. Hazard is 27, De Bruyne is 27, Lukaku, can you believe, is only 25 years of age. This is the peak of these players' careers. So I suppose the fans have that trepidation that's not since the days of Schifo and Keulemans in the 80s that Belgium have had as good a team. And they don't want it to be wasted. So whoever's managing them is going to be under pressure. But they've done everything they needed to do. They've won all their games. They never lost a competitive game, as I say. And they beat Brazil, who are the favourites for the tournament. So Martinez, to be fair to him, I think club management and international management are 2 very different disciplines. He has Thierry Henry, of course, assisting him, and that'll be an interesting subplot tomorrow night. But the Belgian players have responded to his urgings, and they look a united bunch, to be honest. If you look at Vance and Company on social media, has always been very much about the unity of this Belgium team. Of course, have a lot of disparate personalities and languages, the Flemish, the Walloons in the team. A lot of them came out of Anderlecht. Lukaku came out of there, Fellaini as well, and Company himself. So a lot of work has been done the last 15 years in Belgium. I suppose they don't want to see it wasted, and that's why they don't want to see it to go the way it went against Wales in the Euros, and that's, I suppose, is the worry and the fear. But they got to the last 4 now, and that's the best they've ever done, comparable to 86.
John, what about Brazil? Were they just unlucky, or is there something deeper going on there?
A bit of both, Anthony. They were a little bit unlucky, I thought. They had more shots, they had more attempts on goal. I just thought they fell asleep a little bit. I think when Belgium were trying to get their shape early in the game, Brazil could have scored 2 or 3 times. Thiago Silva hit the post. But tactically, I'd wonder why they had Marcelo on the pitch, because he was all over the place. They completely exposed the flank he was on. Fernandinho was not a replacement for Casemiro, who was suspended. And Fernandinho had arguably as bad a game as he did in the 7-1 defeat 4 years ago. Of course, he scored an own goal. That probably sapped a bit of his confidence. But they never really had that defensive bulwark to stop Belgium. And Belgium, to be fair to them, brought Fellaini into the team alongside Witsel. So once they woke up, Anthony, they really had a go. I thought Coutinho, who played well in the early games, probably ran out a little bit of puff in the match. And then Neymar couldn't rescue Brazil on his own. He tried a bit. He had a great shot towards the end, which Courtois tapped over. But I think with Neymar, as fantastic a player as he is, he's distracted too much by his reflection in his own mirror. When I compare Brazil to 2002, back then they had Rivaldo, Ronaldinho, and of course Ronaldo, who scored 8 goals in that tournament. They had 3 players playing at their peak. In this tournament, Brazil didn't have that, and they had a few deficiencies. Sticking with Jesus, I don't think was the best option, with Firmino an option in the team, and a little bit unlucky. A good, talented team, but these are the margins at the elite level of world football, in international football. These are the margins in which you win or you lose. And Belgium maybe got the rub of the green, but they took their chances. And De Bruyne, brilliant finish for that second goal.
John, just a word on Romelu Lukaku. I know he's been a hugely divisive figure in Belgium over the last while, but I really thought maybe it was his coming of age moment as a striker up there. He's been regarded as a flat track bully a lot of the time in the Premier League and scoring against lower level teams. And while he didn't score against Brazil the other night, I thought his hold-up play, his movement, and his vision was probably something we hadn't seen from him before. I'd just like to get your views on that.
Yeah, Michael, I would agree with you completely. I think in the stats, I think he's only scored 1 goal against the top 6 last season in the Premier League. He's still young. As I said, he's only 25 years of age. He's been around a long time, Lukaku, when you consider he was at West Brom at one stage, Chelsea, of course, Manchester United now. He's the record goal scorer in Belgian football history. Now, I know they play a lot more games now with friendlies and that, but he surpassed Keulemans. And that movement and that strength that he showed for that opening goal, setting up De Bruyne, it was a sight to behold. It was absolutely brilliant. His build-up play and his assist was more impressive, lads, than I actually thought than the goal itself. So it's something to say when a player can be that unselfish to play out of his normal position and to set up Kevin De Bruyne's goal like that. So I think with all strikers, Michael, it's all about confidence. Harry Kane has got a lot of confidence at the moment, and Lukaku surely has a huge degree of confidence. He's a thoughtful man, he's an interesting man, and he's delivering at this World Cup. Hazard as well, I thought, was just immense at times. Once again, holding up the ball, holding up the play, dribbling in that second half when Belgium needed to take a bit of heat off the defenders and holding midfielders.
Yeah, we're going to turn our attention to England, John. You're obviously going to Moscow for Wednesday's semi-final against Croatia. You were there in Samara to watch them win on Saturday against Sweden. Another man who was watching them on Saturday against Sweden, and he's been my favourite character of the World Cup, has been Ross Kemp. There's kind of a 3-part journey to watching Ross Kemp watch England. Here's part 1 of Saturday's journey.
Yes! Now we hold. We do not give in. We do not allow them to score.
If that's not the most terrifying thing you've ever heard or seen, I don't know what is. That was obviously after they went 1-0 up. That was after Harry Maguire's header. And then I think this next one is after they win the game, full time.
Pickford! You beauty! You beauty!
And finally, a little bit later on, he gave us his more considered thoughts.
Can I take a picture of me?
My son's saying, Ken, I'll take a picture of him. Son, do we love England? Can you say it?
We love England.
We love England. And you know what? Everyone now should be worried about facing us. Bring it on.
Just gets more and more and more and more intense. It's I really enjoyed him. He kind of sums up perfectly the whole idea of England there. The whole sort of kind of comical chatting to his son at the start, and then suddenly it starts to get a little bit more real and more intense.
Most impressive thing is his stubble seemed to have grown. Like, I mean, within 2 or 3 hours, he just went like, I mean, that man obviously has to shave about 4 times a day. it just increases the legend that he is.
Without question. The other unbelievable phenomenon about this English team and this English experience has been some of the fan footage you've been seeing around the UK that the BBC often cuts to it at half time because, you know, they've got no ads, they've got to fill other stuff, they can't just analyse for the time being. And Croydon has just been a scene of pints being thrown everywhere. This is the sort of stuff I'm talking about. Absolutely alright. This is actually in the stadium, a nation obviously where you're allowed to bring pints into the stand. This is just a montage really of pint throwing.
Yeah, it seems to be. I was watching, actually, I must say to Kevin when he's on later on, because they showed Croydon and they showed a couple of other places, you know, this kind of pint going on. But it cut back. I think he was on the panel with Danny
Murphy,
and I don't know who the girl was in the middle. But anyway, he was. Everyone else was laughing and joking. He was nonplussed. He was just. I was just saying that's good man, Kevin. Stony face. He wasn't getting involved in it at all.
It seemed like, where do they go from here? Like, that was a quarter final. That is the most intense level of pint throwing I've ever seen, which is a new phenomenon in itself. Like, what is the next thing they can do? Like, is it
move on to the vodka?
Move on to the vodka, exactly. It's like just have a pint of a Jaeger bomb ready or something to throw at somebody. I've spent £20 on this. I'm going to get my value money, my money for out of that. Like, I've seen it happen here before at different places. Like during the Euros, there was a couple of pints thrown when Ireland got that penalty against France, where I was watching it, but it was nothing on that level. Like the English, as always, have taken it on to another level. John, you were there in the flesh to actually watch the pint throwing happening in all its real life glory.
It was quite sedate, lads, to be honest, down in Samara. Not many of them there. I remember before the game, I felt, where's the colour, where's the atmosphere here? And I was wondering when it was going to turn up. They had a couple of thousand fans doing that vodka song for the whole game and had the band going and everything. But it did not feel like a World Cup quarter-final, guys. It did not feel like Brazil-Belgium did the night before. And felt like a qualifier for England. And they won it like a qualifier. Sweden were average, didn't use any variety, especially when they went behind. And apart from Jordan Pickford's excellence in goal in the second half, England, I thought, were comfortable winners. Good to see Maguire scoring his first goal on that stage. I thought Raheem Sterling was lively. I thought he was good. I thought he got behind the Sweden defence early on, and I thought he had one of his better games. And Dele Alli, of course, with shaking off that injury now to produce probably his best performance as well in the tournament so far. And they're going to try and obviously use the width of the pitch and the pace against the Croatians to reach that first World Cup final in 52 years. So I think they're enjoying it. I think the pressure is still off them. I think they know what they're doing. Of course, they're very good on set pieces, which they really try to pinpoint Croatia on, because I don't think Croatia are the best at that. And they're going to try to use their pace against Croatia. But they've been a better team against Colombia. They've been a better team against Sweden. And all they can do, lads, is beat what's in front of them. I think they're a little bit underrated in terms of the quality of their players. And who knows what's going to happen now. But it's they're going to face the best midfielder they faced all tournament with Modric and Rakitic. I think Rebic has been excellent for Croatia in the tournament so far. He's a very dangerous player, and we'll really get a sense to see how solid this English three-man defence is, and how much Jordan Henderson can cope with having to do a lot of the donkey work on his own. He was immense the other day.
Good stuff, John. Enjoy St. Petersburg, and we'll catch up with you again tomorrow morning.
All right, lads. Take care.
John Duggan there, writer for offtheball.com, live from St. Petersburg. He is en route to Moscow then after that game tonight to keep you up to speed on what's happening in both semi-finals. Now, Paul Kimmage was on the Sunday paper review yesterday up in Ballyliffin at the Irish Open, and he explained why he decided not to travel to this year's Tour de France.
Maybe I'll go back and look at it try and look at it in a different way. Yeah. And then I think a couple of weeks later, there was this announcement about Froome and the adverse finding for salbutamol, and I thought, oh Jesus, no. No, that's it. That's it. I'm done. I'm not going near it. I got irritated this week when people were asking me about it. I understand it. It irritated the hell out of me. I have to write that column again because I've done it so many times. And you know, it's just, excuse my French, an absolute shit show. It gets, you just, every year you think it can't get any worse, and it does. And it's just awful. It's just awful. And I've decided, you know, being, you know, I suppose selfish in a way, I'm going to come here and I'm going to enjoy myself, and I'm going to, you know, write about stuff that makes me happy and that I can believe in. And I'm just going to leave that, you know, or treat that the way we treat WWF, because it's just an absolute mess, a total mess. And, you know, I met a man actually here the other night whose young sons were racing, and are racing very successfully. And I could tell that they were ambitious, and this is what they were looking at. And he actually was thanking me for what I've done, and it gives his son a chance now. And I didn't have the heart to say, listen, for God's sake, just try and get them to do something else. I would not encourage any kids to go and do that.
Yeah, Paul Kimmage talking about Le Tour there. You can watch the full paper review. He was on with Dermot Calise up at Ballyliffin yesterday. If you hop on to youtube.com/offtheball, the podcast is available as well on iTunes and all your Android apps. Ger, of course, was at the tour if you were following on social media over the course of the weekend with thanks to Skoda. He'll be back in tomorrow with all his tales from the Vendée region, from seeing the Grand Départ and Chris Froome falling and all that good stuff. So he'll be back in tomorrow to bring you up to speed on that. We're going to return to the Gaelic football now because the Super 8s are now confirmed. We've kind of horribly referred to it as the start of the football season now, but in essence, from the neutral perspective, from the amount of games that we've got on TV, like you were making the point before we came on air, that there's just going to be a greater footballing IQ around the country, because let's face it, we actually don't get to see teams play that often in full, the full 70 minutes on TV. That's not going to be the case over the next few weeks.
No, definitely not. I mean, what we've seen Kerry play once this year in what was a washout down Munster. Similar enough in Leinster. I think we've only seen Dublin twice. Whereas now you'll see them being tested. You'll see some teams who have played really well throughout the qualifiers, and you get to see them week on week and how they're progressing. And it's going to be what I think will happen with the Super 8s is similar enough to what happens in the league. Teams will revert to actually how they should play. As in, it's very hard to change yourself week on week and change everything that you're doing. So you'll find a natural way of playing. And in Tyrone's case, we already know what that is. We know that they're going to drop deep, they're going to counter-attack at real pace and offload to their scorers inside. The rest is the bit of the enigma that we're missing. There's not going to be the room to, you know, maybe change it and go to a blanket defence halfway through it. I don't think, unless you've worked on it throughout the league and maybe in the break in between. So what normally tends to happen, and that's why we all, you know, talk about league football as a great competition. You end up with great games that are close. You're going to see that in the Super 8. These teams are playing each other week in, week out. They know each other inside out, most of them. And it's going to be enthralling to watch.
Yeah, like, are we in the middle of one of the best modern seasons we've seen? Like, the scoring at the weekend was outrageous.
Yeah, you could be. And I suppose the interesting aspect of it is you know, people talk about the evolution of sports and the evolution of Gaelic football, and I think, you know, people were talking, like, saying, oh, you know, I saw certain people giving out about Fermanagh, you know, and Fermanagh were so negative and da-da-da. Like, actually, you know, I watched the game in its entirety, and Fermanagh had as many chances as Kildare had in the first half. You know, they just had some absolutely terrible wides, and they had some really, really poor decision making. Kildare had plenty of options when they went forward. You know, 3 or 4 men moving off the ball. There was always an extra pass to be able to be given in the forward line, if so. Whereas Fermanagh had kind of sole runners trying to take fellas on, you know, cornerbacks taking pot shots, this kind of stuff. It could have been a very different game. And people, you know, it's lazy analysis, because Kildare had plenty of times where they had 13 men behind the ball in their own half, and they might have only had Flynn or the other lad, the corner forward, I can't think of his name escapes me now, up front. So what has happened is it's the transition from, obviously people talk about this defence into attack, and how precise you can be, how quick you can be, how accurate you can be it through the hand or by foot, obviously even more preference, and then getting the right people on the ball to take the scores up front, and having lively forwards who are able to take men on, physically powerful or whatever it is. That is the key now to Gaelic football. So everything has moved on. And I think the idea of just having a team and saying, right, we're going to set up defensive, whatever that means, right? And we're just going to kind of try to grind out a game that's like 10 points to 8. Those days are done. Those days are over. Those days are finished. And I think what's happening now is people are realising more and more and more that you have to, okay, we can get that correct. We can get that right from the start. But that's pretty easy. Like, we could get that right. We just pull 14 men behind the ball and you have a defensive setup. But the idea is how you get it up the field to make sure that you're scoring somewhere between 16 to 18 scores. That's the key. And if you can't do that, and then obviously when you come up against a better opposition, well, how can we do that? How can we do that faster, more efficient, etc., etc.? Have the right fellas, as I say, on the ball. And that's where all of a sudden panels come into it. That's where quality comes into it. That's where you have more than just 1 or 2 guys who are threats. And that's why Kildare, I know I'm kind of bouncing around here, but Kildare impressed me the last night, because Kildare are a big physical team with big physical men all around the pitch, and lads who can kick points from anywhere. Their halfbacks can kick scores, their cornerbacks are happy enough to come up and take on the ball, and they've got some really, really lively forwards now who are confident now. Like, I mean, they tried stuff in Navan the other night that they would never have tried 3-4 weeks ago. Crossfield balls, no luck passes, this kind of stuff, and that all comes. So the really interesting aspect for me will be a team, say, like them or Tyrone, who've been on the road now the last couple of weeks. How will they motor up against, look, Galway? No one's even mentioned Galway. I can't even remember the last time Galway played, actually. It seems like they played last year sometime, you know?
I think that more so than what's happened if you look at the Hurling Championship, which had 5 round-robin games, the first weekend is crucial to get a win, especially for the teams who've come out of the qualifiers, because they're playing another team who's been on the road the same amount of time as them. And if you're Roscommon or Tyrone, if you're Monaghan or Kildare, and you end up losing, it's very hard to pick yourself up against what would be considered a fresh provincial winner, and to turn it around and win 2 games on the bounce. So the first game for those teams is definitely going to be the big one, I think.
The flip side of all of that is, once you get that win in the first game as a qualifier, suddenly the provincial winner is coming to your home patch in round 2, and that's the great element of this format here, because there could be an open door here for a shock progression from both groups.
Yeah, it is. I think it probably, I'd say if you were to put money on it now, and you were to say, well, okay, of those teams who have gone through the qualifier, how many of them will win those first games? It's going to be a really tough ask. Now, the flip side of that will be, well, they've been playing regular, and you know yourself. Like, I mean, the qualifiers are a great thing, because once you get up and running in the qualifiers, it's just game. You know, one or two fellas will put their hand up, but more often than not, it's a settled team with fellas who can make impacts coming into the team. But you're just rolling on from one week to the next, and it's fantastic. So you end up with a situation where, will the likes of, let's say, Galway just be a little bit stale, because all they've been doing is playing in-house games? You know, they haven't had that competitive edge. They haven't had to redefine themselves or come up against different fellas. So it is. I absolutely 100% agree with Michael. You have to get, especially with the qualifier teams, it is a must-win game, that win. And maybe next year they might look at giving a bit more of a break. You know, to those teams.
It's like the psychology of tournament football that you talk about at the World Cup. Like, a lot of these teams have never had to deal with that, whereas teams who've been in the qualifiers on a regular basis, the likes of Roscommon, the likes of Armagh, the likes of yourselves down through the years, it is a different approach, isn't it? It's not like warming up in January saying, May 13th, you know, that's the day, and you're looking at it 4 months down the line, like the way Dublin's and Kerry's do.
Yeah, there's a lot more continuity involved. I mean, if you're playing week on week, there's very limited things that you can do during the week. That's what we're talking about. There won't be a huge amount of change for those teams. It is a very different experience when you're playing that way, rather than peaking every 4 weeks or peaking every 3 weeks and then tapering it down, working on some new things, coming back up again. It's going to be very tough for those teams to sustain that level. I mean, Tyrone have played 4 games in 5 weeks. They're now about to go two more weekends on the bounce. Like, that's a lot of games. A lot of games.
And let's not forget as well that if they progress to semi-final, there's only 1 week gap before the semi-final then as well.
Yeah.
So
it is a lot of games.
Or straight into the semi-final, I think, actually.
Yeah, but again, and it's really going to be interesting to see, because as the one thing that happens through a qualifier group is that fellas do get game time.
Yeah.
So guys who are, say, 22, 21 on the panel, you know, might be outside those kind of main 4 or 5 who come in. All of a sudden, if those fellas are putting their hand up, which some Tyrone lads have, and some Kildare lads have, if they're putting their hand up in a major way to say, listen, I can come in for 15, 20 minutes and make a big impact for you. You as a manager now are going, that is absolutely brilliant. You not only have your 4 or 5 who are maybe tactical, you know, that are going to go in, but you now have 3 or 4 who are really asking you serious questions. So when it comes to a specific situation in a game, you know, okay, I've got a guy here who's it's a jack in the box. No one expects him to come in. He might come in for 15 minutes for me and cause absolute anarchy for me. And he's going to be fresh, he's going to be hungry, and he's also going to be full of confidence, because when you get wins in the qualifiers, the whole team gets more and more confident. The training sessions are much sharper, you know, lads are playing with a bit of gusto, you know, and it's rather than being in that kind of a you don't know kind of an area where you've won your provincial, you're kind of going, well, we eased through that fairly handy, you know, but we haven't really been tested. So there's pros and cons to that first game. You know, there really is.
Let's remind ourselves of the fixtures for the Super 8s. So round 1 is going to be Dublin against Donegal, Roscommon against Tyrone, Kerry versus Monaghan, and Kildare versus Monaghan, and Kerry versus Galway. This is then round 2, Roscommon against Donegal, Tyrone against Dublin. The home teams the first team here at home, by the way, Kildare against Galway, Monaghan versus Kerry. So a couple of great ones there. The Hyde for the Donegal trip there, Omagh will be brilliant, and Newbridge and Clones. Like round 2 there is what the Super 8 is.
Yeah, I don't think they've done any of the provincial winners any favours in round 2.
No.
Because for any of them, bar Dublin, they've already travelled pretty much to an away game. I mean, Kerry travelled to Croke Park to play Galway, and then they have to travel to Monaghan the following weekend. That's a tough ask.
Yeah.
I mean, you've come through, you've won your provincial championship. Should the second game be at home? If you come off the loss for one of those provincial winners, you come off a loss, you go up to Croke Park, let's say Kerry beat Galway, and Galway have to turn around and go to Newbridge the following weekend after, let's say, Kildare may have beaten Monaghan, you're suddenly very up against it. You're extremely up against it. This is the thing, it's all guesswork. It's all guesswork for us at the minute. We've no form book. We've no, you know, we've turned around, we've seen the patterns that have emerged out of the Hurling Championship. will there be a pattern will emerge in the Super 8s? Probably, but at the moment it's all guesswork to try and figure out what that is.
Just like removing the guesswork from it a little bit, like we did get a good glimpse of what we can, like what the likes of Tyrone have to offer from the weekend and from the course of the last couple of weeks. And you talk about lads stepping up when they really need to and getting that momentum behind them. Like, did you see enough from Tyrone on Saturday to suggest that the likes of Conor McCalliskey and Ronan O'Neill have made that quantum leap where they can actually really do a lot of damage to Dublin up in Omagh?
Yeah, that's going to be a tribal experience up in Omagh. For like, you could be looking at a packed house there, which is that's what the Super 8 is brilliant for. I mean, they're bringing football down to provincial grounds, home grounds, with huge crowds. And regardless of what you say, Croke Park is great, but 30,000 in Croke Park is lost. It's lost compared to 30,000 down in Killarney or 30,000 in Pearse Stadium, where the place is rocking. Have I seen enough from Tyrone? Roscommon's big test is next weekend. Their forwards were great yesterday, or on Saturday. They were all on the money, albeit they lost Diarmuid Murtagh to an injury with about 15 minutes to go, which would be a massive loss for them. They have 5 or 6 scoring forwards. The question is, can they get them into a position to be taking those shots against a Tyrone team who have refined their defensive structure over how many years at this stage and know it inside out. I think they can get scores at the far end. People look at Tyrone and look at the defensive structure and say that that's all they have. They kicked 320 on Saturday against Cork and could have been another 2-5 on top of that. And the thing from them is they lost to Monaghan, they still kick 116. They're getting scores, you're looking at their tallies, they're still hitting 117, 118, and it's going to take a massive effort from some team to put what Monaghan did and get more than that against them.
Are they the best place of the qualifiers to get out of the Super 8 groups?
Tyrone?
Yeah.
Well, if you remember, we spoke about it really earlier on in the year when they were going through the league, and we spoke about O'Neill's influence on them and how he always, as a player, he liked to do those kind of no-look passes from left to right and right to left. And with Brennan and guys like this inside, then during the league, they were mixing it up a lot. They were mixing up their power running game with the likes of Hart and Sludden to a game where they were able to, if that defence was, they were able to put the ball in behind and then cause runners to go in. So I agree. Like, I mean, this myth of, Tyrone are a very boring team to watch. Like, I mean, I go back, the game in Navan was a brilliant game because, like, the intensity in it, both teams running hard. But at one or two occasions in the second half, I looked across at Donald Lenihan, the Meath full forward, and he was one-on-one with I think Hampsey, and loads of room in front. And I kind of looked at myself and I said, obviously Hart realised that Meath like to carry the ball these days, less so kick it. But he was quite happy. There was no defensive structure set up. So I think again, Hart is a man who has been open to suggestion and open to fellas like O'Neill coming in and saying, listen, we need to tweak here, tweak there. And that is his brilliance. That is always a manager's brilliance, the fact that he goes, okay, what have you got to offer? Yeah, okay, let's try that. And the Cork goalkeeper kept Cork massively in the game in the first half because he made 2 unbelievable saves. So I think they have a lot. Their gander is up now. They can again play it either way, and they will absolutely, like Omagh is just, that's a whole different kettle of fish there. And what Michael is saying about the whole idea of going down into these provincial kind of stadiums. Like, I mean, it sounds like a plan to me. It sounds like something that should be happening through the whole championship, because imagine, groups of 4 and everything else. Let's not get into that this morning, but that is what it's about. Croke Park is fantastic, but it can be absolutely dire as well if you're in there with a number less than 60,000,
I'd probably say Kildare are the best placed of the qualifier teams.
Yeah.
I just think the confidence they would have got from taking out Mayo, and their players will have grown 2 or 3 feet tall. I know the same thing with the year we bet Cork in 2016. The confidence that gave us going into the rest of the year it's something that's very understated. They've had a very good victory against Fermanagh when it can be hard to go and pick yourself back up after such an emotionally charged victory in Newbridge and what it was. And the way the results fall for them, if they can get a result, or the way the fixtures fall for them, if they can get a result against Monaghan in Croke Park and then they welcome Galway to Newbridge, and the same sort of atmosphere. A team coming from the west, you know, it's they've done it before. They have their conditioning has come on a hell of a lot in the last 2 years. They're a very big team, and they'd be hoping that they go into the last game against Kerry knowing that they have 2 victories on the board, and the game is hopefully
they finished strongly in games.
They'd be the one that I'd pick out, but. Gee, knowing the way I've gone with predictions now over the last while, they'll get beaten in Grove Park, and then Galway will come down and take them by 15 points inside Newbridge. So they've got the curse of death now.
Like, I'm starting to think that Monaghan versus Kildare is the biggest game next weekend. We will come back to the other 2 sides from the qualifier element of things in the Super Race, but we do want to turn to hurling briefly. Tommy Welsh was obviously on the show yesterday on Off the Ball, and we got his post-match thoughts after Galway's win over Kilkenny. He was speaking to Maura Trassa.
Well, Galway are the Leinster champions yet again, 2 in a row. Probably unusual for a Kilkenny man to come away from a Leinster final losing it. Are you happy with the performance though?
I'm delighted with Kilkenny's performance because I just think they came up against a Galway team that we all know the champions they are, and last Sunday I suppose Kilkenny came with the spirit, the grit, the aggression, and probably, you know, they outmatched Galway in all departments on that side of things. But I think they came with everything today, like everything you want out of a team. You have the spirit, you have the heart, but then you have the craft and the skill. All those hours, like, and people think it comes naturally, it comes easily, but them guys have been doing that since they're probably 3-4 years of age. Them boys up against the wall, out in their gardens, and I think it just all came to fruition there today. And you know, he made a few changes there before the game, Micheál O'Donoghue, and it probably gave them the injection that they needed, that Galway team. But it was just a truly masterclass from them.
Yeah, Tommy Welsh there speaking to Maura Trassa and colleague after the game yesterday in Thurles. Michael Verney of the Irish Independent joins us now on Skype to chat about the game. Michael, I understand we're going live to your room where you've got a pair of iconic boxing gloves.
Yeah, good to be with you, Eoin. Yeah, there's a few bits of memorabilia behind me, all right. Yeah, I'm a bit of a memorabilia hoarder when it comes to sports memorabilia.
Well, explain to us the gloves. There's a Mike Tyson pair and a Holyfield pair.
Yeah, no, there's one signed by Evander Holyfield here. I think he's a big Bible lover, and it says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And Tyson has signed underneath it, "Fuck yeah, I bit his ear." So contrasting views there.
Michael here is actually the eagle-eyed Michael Quinlivan's here in studio. Michael, he's after spotting some WWE memorabilia over your right shoulder as well.
Oh God, yeah, there's a fair bit of it here. Wrestling figures, wrestling belts, everything. Yeah. I'm all inclusive when it comes to sports. Nothing left out.
We should do actually a piece on all the memorabilia there. We could spend hours chatting about all the stuff there. There's some unbelievable stuff there, but we do want to chat about Galway Kilkenny yesterday, because that was an unbelievable event in itself, Michael. And I wonder, have we just got another preview of this year's All-Ireland final?
I think we have, Eoin, to be honest with you. Yeah, just for me, I think the big thing yesterday, and I suppose it was a noticeable thing the first day in the drawn match as well, is the difference in physicality between the Leinster matches. Well, noticeably the drawn match and the replay, maybe not some of the round robin games, but the difference between that physicality and any of the games that we saw in Munster is probably a lot more ball playing going on in Munster, a lot less physicality. I wonder how Limerick will cope with Kilkenny's physicality this weekend. And on that as well, I think I do fancy Kilkenny to get over that hurdle, and I wonder how Cork will cope with that as well, because they won't have come up against anything like that. And I think it's becoming increasingly clear probably that we are seeing the best 2 teams in the country, albeit I think Galway are a couple of steps ahead of Kilkenny at the moment. But yeah, it would be mad to think that Galway, if they were to do a back-to-back, there's a possibility that they could have to beat Kilkenny 3 times along the way, and that would surely make up for what people are saying, maybe that they won an All-Ireland last year without beating Kilkenny. To beat them 3 times in 1 year would just be phenomenal, really.
Yeah, I think they've even got that monkey off their back after yesterday, really, haven't they? Especially the nature of the comeback. Beating them twice in 1 year is probably good enough if they don't meet again later in the summer.
Yeah, I think the nature of the win yesterday would have been massively pleasing. Like, they started like a house on fire. That's probably the best 20 minutes of hurling we've seen from any team this year. But the fact that Kilkenny came back into the game, were within a point of them. Like, if Galway had won by 10 or 12 pulling up and just kept that advantage the whole way through, that wouldn't have been as satisfying for Micheál O'Donoghue as the fact that everything was thrown at them again. Questions were asked, just like they were asked in the 2016 Leinster final, but they answered them all yesterday. I think that the big thing was, in the drawn game, Galway scored 18 points, which was easily the lowest tally under Micheál Donoghue's reign. I think his average is 26.8 points in his 15 championship games. They absolutely blew that out of the water yesterday. It was 29 scores to 18, and they just the array of attacking options that they have. Cathal Mannion, 6 points yesterday. Conor Whelan 4. Johnny Glynn, despite the fact that maybe some people think he shouldn't be playing because he's wearing two gloves in his hands to protect his fingers, which I think is mad. He could wear 3 of them after yesterday. Like the attacking options that they have, and to leave Conor Cooney on the line, I thought that was a big move, even dropping him yesterday. But it paid off. Johnny Glynn was the focal point of their attack, and they just have so many options. And David Burke and Johnny Cohen, after being quiet the first day, I've never seen two midfielders hit as much ball as they hit in the first 25 minutes.
Yeah, it was unbelievable stuff. Would you put that down to the main reason for the turnaround from day one was the added influence of the midfielders on the ball?
Yeah, they were quite deep again yesterday in the half-back line as well, and you could just noticeable with David Burke, every time he got the ball, there was no time taken on the ball. It was a clear tactic that the second they get the ball, just get it inside. We have big powerful lads inside in the full forward line, just get it in as fast as we can to them. And I think it was just a change in attitude, really. They were the ones that were hounding all over the field yesterday, where it was probably Kilkenny the week before. And I think it's actually worked out perfectly for Galway. They were probably, unbeknownst to themselves, probably came in a little bit complacent the first day. They've gotten kind of the wake-up call that they needed. And some of the hurling yesterday was brilliant. And just to go back to Cathal Mannion again, there was a point he got there when the game was really in the melting pot. He picked up the ball around his own 65, just kind of nonchalantly threw a shoulder to his left and just threw it over from 70 or 80 yards. And there's not too many players and not too many teams to have guys that can do that, especially when the game is in the pressure cooker. It was a massive win for Galway, and they earn a little break now as well, and probably going to be facing Clare or Wexford more than likely in a semi-final, and they're going to be very hard beaten in that.
Just to go back to the Babs Keating and the gloves story, here's a tweet from Darth Cody, the Brian Cody party account on Twitter, on Johnny Glynn wearing 2 gloves, Babs Keating obviously in the sun on Sunday. It's unforgivable that the biggest and strongest fella on the pitch, 6 foot 4 inches and nearly 16 stone, had to wear them on both hands. If I was Donoghu giving him a jersey, I'd have a serious chat about it first, which hopefully might have been a parody from Babs himself. It's right up there in terms of one of the most unusual criticisms of a team. It's hardly kind of something that would create some sort of siege mentality, but I'm sure if Johnny Glynn had read that beforehand, he'd be thinking to himself, screw you, I'm going to prove to you why I deserve to be in this team and why I deserve to wear as many gloves as I like.
Yeah, it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen written, to be honest with you. I think really, in fairness, Johnny Glynn was wearing 2 gloves, but Babs played a game with no boots on his feet at one stage. So I don't think you can have too many complaints. When you're 6'5" and your main game is winning ball in the air, and God only knows how many broken fingers Johnny Glynn has had down through the years, and even DJ wore 2 ash guards back in the day as well. Such was his kind of aerial ability, and lads would be pulling hard in the air. I just think it was one of the most outlandish and crazy kind of statements. If ever there was column inches been filled by something nonsensical, I think that's a prime example of it.
I've got a tip man beside me here who's getting very offended by his assault on his county man. One last thing, just on Kilkenny, and just we'll get to the quick turnaround in a moment, but the whole Padraig Walsh conundrum was thrown up again last night by Donal O'Grady on the Sunday game. Now Derek McGrath disagreed with him, but he made the point that he needs to be brought back out to pitch, that it is a story as old as time now at this point. Padraig Walsh are his talents best utilised in the full back line for Kilkenny. What do you think? Do you think that debate should be brought back up right now, or should Kilkenny just stick to the plan and go ahead, and because they've got enough to beat Limerick next weekend?
Yeah, I wouldn't have necessarily disagreed with what Donal O'Grady said yesterday. I think it probably was a bit OTT based on 4 or 5 maybe inspirational catches and coming out with ball. I just don't think he's a natural fullback. I don't think he's comfortable there. I think he wants to attack every chance he gets. If he's playing wing back, his strongest area is probably in the air. If he's playing wing back, guaranteed there's going to be at least 6 or 7 puckouts coming down his way, so he will get a chance to show his aerial ability throughout a game. He just doesn't look comfortable there to me. I think he was under pressure with Conor Cooney down in Salt Hill. He was under pressure. He was under pressure in some earlier games as well with Jason Ford in the league as well. I think possibly they ended up with Robert Lennon in full back yesterday, who would probably be a bit more physically imposing than Pádraig, and maybe that might be a tactic that they might look at if they do play Galway again. Pádraig just has so much to offer as a half-back, particularly structurally and holding kind of shape. Kilkenny's half-backs probably got lost a bit yesterday and were kind of left in no man's land a bit. I don't think when you have an experienced head like that would happen, and I think that he would drive forward, and chances are he's probably going to provide a point or two maybe in the style that Aidan Hart did for Galway. So there's, when you're maybe attacking and firing as well, it's always nice to have a guy that can put a ball over from 100 yards as well, and he's kind of restricted from doing that at full back. But I find it hard to believe that Cody would change mid-season. This is obviously something that he has planned for throughout the year. He's always very conscious of getting his spine set in place. He has his 3 and 6 in place at the moment. I don't think he'll panic or make a change based on, maybe half an hour yesterday, even in the first 20 minutes against Johnny Glynn. But I think everyone would like to see Pádraig at wing back, just because we know what he can do. He's Tommy Mark 2 essentially.
Yeah, Michael Verney of the Irish Independent, thanks a million for that this morning.
Thanks a million on. Cheers, lads.
So, of course, it's going to be Kilkenny against Limerick at the weekend, and, of course, Wexford against Clare. It's an unbelievable weekend of hurling as well. Here we have Barefoot Babs, the legend that is. What game was that in? That was, I'm just trying to think. We'll get that up in a moment, but that's one of the most legendary moments. I actually hadn't seen a picture of that in a long time. It's Barefoot Babs. Can he be talking about some fella wearing 2 gloves? I'm not so sure, but it's an interesting one, the whole 2 glove situation. So, yeah, as I say, it's going to be Wexford against Clare.
That Galway full forward line is bringing back the Ashguard, though, aren't they? Conor Whelan wears one as well.
Yeah, I think so, actually. Did they all do the thing?
I'd say they're getting... Well, they're probably so good in the air, they're just getting belted left, right and centre. I never, in my limited hurling experience, I never went for the Ashguard myself, no.
That was the 71 All-Ireland hurling final, of course. Tipperary and Kilkenny, Babs Keating there. More Babs goodness, hopefully, through the course of the summer. There's a lot more hurling to come. Here's some more from Tommy Walsh and Maura Trassett from yesterday. He's talking about what's next for this Kilkenny team.
It's not that long, obviously, since Tommy sat in the Kilkenny dressing room. What's Brian Cody saying to them this evening?
He won't say anything at all, I'd say, in the dressing room today, because, lads are going to be so disappointed after losing a provincial final, especially in the manner they did after coming back so well. So I don't think you would take in much on a day like today. So he'll probably leave it till Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever they meet up again, and then he will just start getting them going for next Saturday, because they're still in the championship. If you're in the old championship when it was knockout, you're in the very same place. If they win their quarter final next Saturday, they're back to where they would have been if they had to win today, back to a semi-final, a last 4, and that's where you want to be. So I would say he'll be drumming down them points to the guys.
You've seen a lot of the hurling championship games in person. I'm sure you've watched the rest back as well. What's your assessment now of the championship? Are Galway still the team to beat?
Yeah, I think Galway are the team to beat. I think the 2 provincial final winners are the teams to beat, Cork and Galway, and both, funnily enough, in different ways, but the same. Both brilliant at winning their own ball, but in different ways. Galway are able to use their physical strength, their ability in the air. Towards Cork is all about speed, running, using their lightning pace, using their amazing skill. Horgan, Lehan, Harnedy, all these guys to win their ball and get their score. So 2 totally different teams, but fascinating nonetheless. So I think the 2 guys they're not meeting in the semi-final, but I'd love to see the 2 of them teams meeting in Croke Park.
And obviously you're going to be going for a Kilkenny win, I'm guessing, next weekend, despite the fact that it could possibly be a 6-day turnaround. Yes, and I think Limerick will be the favourites, and I think Limerick have the momentum, they have things going for them. But I just think these Kilkenny youngsters, they have that knack of pulling out a result when it's unexpected, and I'd be expecting them to keep it close and maybe snatch a victory next Saturday.
Interesting stuff. Tommy Walsh saying Limerick are favourites for that match next Sunday. Of course, we'll have build-up and all of that sort of stuff coming up throughout the course of the week. And the hurling show is back on Friday with Shane Stapleton and friends. We are going to turn back to the World Cup now. Kevin Kilbane has landed back in Manchester, I understand. A very good morning to you, Kev.
Good morning, Eoin. How are you keeping?
Not too bad at all. We just want to start on something here because Babs Keating at the weekend was giving out about Johnny Glynn wearing 2 gloves. I've heard his next column today is going to be giving out about you wearing 2 gloves while eating your food in Russia on Friday night.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. I don't know, it was a strange little thing that they had. They had these, like, you're having a bit of the chicken, so instead of giving you little finger balls to wash your hands or little wipe to clean your hands, they give you gloves instead. So it just takes it all away, doesn't it? It was just it was a nice little touch from the restaurant there. It was good. Yeah, it was good. That's via Dan Walker's Twitter account there on screen right now. So how was it? You've come back. You're not going back over, I understand, before the end of the tournament. Was it an emotional couple of weeks for you? Probably an emotion of anger for the most part, looking at England succeeding. No, I'm not bitter, Owen. You know me. I'm not bitter at all. No, I'm desperate for England to do well, as you know. Yeah, it's great. But no, it was. No, I have enjoyed it. I have enjoyed it. It's been such a great experience. Just across the country, has been great. I've done some great games as well, which always helps. And spent a bit of time in Moscow as well. And it's considering the low expectations before I went out there, I'd spoken to you in the show the last couple of weeks about that. The expectations were so low going over there. I think it exceeded probably Brazil 4 years ago. That's the way I feel. A World Cup in Brazil was outstanding to go to, but this was just something very special. It was, yeah.
Yeah, just on the Moscow element there, it seems to just be complete universal praise for the city as an experience. And I wonder, has that praise filtered through to the Ingerland fans back home? And there might be plane loads of them coming over before Wednesday night. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure there'll be loads getting over. I don't know how they're going to get tickets, how they're going to get the fan ID. The fan ID could be the problem for them and the visas. But yeah, if there's thousands of fans going in looking to cause trouble, then that of course could cause a different sort of mentality maybe from the police over there. But as I said, I think I'm sure there was a message, to the police out there. Look, you might need to be a little bit more tolerant here than what you maybe have been in the past. That could have been the message to them, but I can only take it from what I saw. And I said to you, every part of it was run perfectly. Organisation side, metro buses, everything just runs so smoothly. But as you say, like maybe this week it could be different. There might be a different element of supporter going over there. We'll see, but hopefully not. Hopefully it just continues to run the way that it's run up to now, and hopefully there'll be no trouble towards the semis and final.
Yeah, absolutely with you on that one. So England, obviously, it wasn't the most exciting game on Saturday. I think we were all enthralled, though, by seeing England just get through to a semi-final. It's such a novelty for so many of us who've never seen it happen before. And there is a sense, Kev, that they weren't even near top gear on Saturday.
No, how many times have you heard the phrase, and I've probably used the phrase myself, probably a bit loosely, that there's no easy games in international football, but that was as easy a game as you're going to find at any level, let alone a quarter-final of a World Cup. Sweden offered nothing. They offered very little. Yes, Pickford had to make a couple of decent saves, don't get me wrong, but there was no pace in the game. England cruised through the match, and it should have been that way. Let's be honest, if you look at the teams, 1 to 11, 1 to 23, whichever way you look at it, the squad difference is massive, it's huge. So that was why you could clearly tell that England should have played the way that they played. It should have been a cruise the way that it went for them. Croatia haven't been flying at all as well, so they're going into this game off the back of the real high against Colombia, the extra time, which would take a lot out of the legs, but that was a real down game for them. That was a real game where they could have actually took the foot off the pedal a little bit. And I think certainly it's advantage England going into this Croatia match, given the fact is that Croatia have had the 2 extra times and penalties.
I do want to get your take on Raheem Sterling, because obviously it's been well documented that he's been coming last in all these online player ratings over the last couple of games, and there does seem to be kind of a national feeling, like separate to all the tabloid stuff written about him, or maybe that's the reason why the national or the public in England seem to think that he is not performing near his top level. And of course he doesn't have the goal scoring element in his game. He hasn't had it for quite some time for England, but I was quite impressed with his performance on Saturday. I thought, because they don't have a deep lying creative midfielder who can pass the ball, it's his runs that allow the creativity to flow through this England team.
Yeah, his final ball, Owen, it's the one that lets him down. His finishing probably lets him down. I heard him described at the weekend as a player's player, and maybe the lads there, Michael and the lads in studio there, and Anthony, sorry, they'll tell you exactly what the story is when you get a player's player, when you know someone that's doing a job, but they're not always pleasing on the eye. They may make mistakes when in key moments in games, and I think in general that's exactly what I think Sterling is. Sterling gets England up the pitch. I think he pulls off defenders into key areas where he's going to get on the ball on his half turn. Then he's going to be able to run at defenders. He commits defenders, but his final ball has seriously been lacking. It really has. You can't get away from that fact. Even at the weekend, the positions that he got himself into, he could have had a couple of goals. But the runs that he's making, if he continues to make those runs in key areas of the game, in key moments of the game, particularly in these latter stages against Croatia. I mean, he's up against Vida and Lovren, or maybe even Choluka and Lovren. You know how badly he could hurt those players with his pace. So that is what he's going to bring to it, and that is why he's a key weapon for England, I feel. Yeah.
Kev, I do feel that Harry Kane is definitely the most dangerous player on the field. But is England's midfield of Henderson, Ali, and Jesse Lingard good enough to dominate the Croatian midfield of Modric, Rakitic, and it's been Rebic or the guy from Real Madrid, Kovacic.
Kovacic, yeah. No, and the point you make is valid. It's probably not. It's not good enough to compete at that level. Certainly, ball retention. Anyway, that is where England could get undone on Wednesdays. I think it is. Yeah, that's where they could be seriously hurt. Henderson actually played quite well Saturday. I thought his distribution was a lot better than it was against Colombia. I felt in the Colombia game, I think Henderson, if you're playing that deep line role, I think you've got to be prepared to make mistakes, but you're also going to have to be prepared to get on the ball. And I felt he'd made a couple of mistakes in the game in the second half. And I think overall, then I think he maybe had a reluctance to get on the ball. I think he went hiding a little bit. I think he stepped in behind midfielders, pointing to others to take the ball when he was in so much space to take it. So Henderson could be one where if things aren't going right for him, then he may have a tendency to not want the ball, and that could be a big area for England if they are getting dominated with those players that you mentioned, Rakitic and particularly Modric. Modric, he's been the mainstay. He's been the one you've been reliable, because Rakitic was quite poor in that last game against Russia himself. But Ali's not been firing. Yeah, he got a goal in the last match, but he hasn't been firing. He's not been getting the ball. I don't think he's been creative enough. Jesse Lingard's probably brings you something different, where he's going to bring you the energy. He's going to bring you the legs to get round the pitch and maybe go and close down, and maybe even ball carrying as well. But certainly retention, that is where this could be the key to this game. Ball retention, and Croatia have got far better players in that area, yeah.
But Anthony here, Kevin, how you doing? And saying that,
all right, mate.
The Croatia looking a tired team to me, and Modric kind of looks like he's a fella, especially with the kind of nearly that weight of the expectation of the whole country on his shoulders, and he's been wearing it okay, well, but if you talk about ball retention, they're going to have to retain it, because I think England look a bit livelier, a bit fitter, and I think just less tired. And obviously you take in the extra times and the penalties, but even before that, Croatia were just looking a bit leggy for me. Is that an issue, do you think, for them?
I thought it was massive. I thought it was massive, certainly, how leggy they looked in the two games. Denmark can do that to teams. Denmark are a poor watch, I feel. And they just stifled them. They dropped off. They give them no space, and they did look leggy. I thought they looked leggy in the two games, but I'm not talking about extra time here. I'm talking about maybe in the first half of games there was no energy in the side. The thing is in Modric, I said before, Modric has been the one player that you feel as though you can rely on. I think he's been trying to do too much. I think he's been trying to even go and beat players, which is unusual for him, go and beat 3 or 4 players at times, trying to make something happen for Croatia, and it simply hasn't been. So I think overall, what Southgate has done, you talk about the energy that's in the side, I think maybe in relation to what Michael was saying there as well, they haven't got good ball players. So I think what he's decided, well, I tell you what, we're going to go with real energy in the team. Legs might carry us through in this type of game when we're playing against sides that are simply better than us on the ball. I think that's what Southgate's decided on by Henderson. You know what Henderson's going to bring to the side. I think defensively he's as good as anyone. Certainly on his half turn when opposition have the ball, he's always checking the shoulders, stopping balls being threaded through to strikers' feet. I think he's very good at doing that. But on the ball is where he's lacking, and that is where there's maybe 1 or 2 others in that England side that are lacking. So I think Southgate decided, look, I think he decided quite a while ago as well, look, we are not going to have as good a side as other teams, but we're going to have to play high energy football, go and stop teams playing, and that is where they've got the success up to now. In the maybe late stages of games, the last 20, 30 minutes of all England matches, I think they've struggled. I think they've looked leggy as well, because they've not been able to maintain that real high intensity of a game that they've been playing.
Just a quick word on Belgium against France, Kev. It's tomorrow night in St. Petersburg. Maybe we've misunderstood Roberto Martinez for his entire career. Maybe he's just a massive footballing genius and we just didn't realise it until now.
No, do you know what, Owen? I said, I wouldn't be his biggest fan, but as a coach, he is very, very good. That's the one thing that's always been relayed back from players on the training ground. Very, very good tactic on the training ground. I think he has great ways of changing systems to suit opposition, and I think he's even got ways of changing systems in games. The back end of Everton, it was almost a defiance of my will overtake opposition without necessarily going to play different ways. That's where he went away from the things that got him success at Wigan prior to getting the Everton job. So I think in general, across his coaching career, he's had success at tinkering and changing teams like he did going back to a back four. I think that surprised Brazil the other day. I think it was a massive thing, bringing Fellaini in and nullifying the threat of Coutinho, because Coutinho had to drop deeper and deeper and he wasn't having an effect in the game. De Bruyne getting him a bit further forward as well in a little triangle with De Bruyne, Hazard and Lukaku. They played so well against Brazil. So he has got that way about him. He might not necessarily be always liked by people and maybe even players at times as well. But I think in general, tactically, something that he's always been very good with.
Who's going to be in the final, Kev?
I'll lean towards France, but it's a flip of the coin, that one. I do. I just lean towards France. Just maybe they've got a bit more big game experience in that side. But again, certainly no surprise if Belgium beat them. And it kills me to say, but I think England are going to beat Croatia. Just from what I've seen of Croatia, I've seen them frightened. I've seen them not playing with the real energy that they played within the group stages when they were outstanding and getting out of the group. So it kills me to say, but I think it could be a France-England final, yeah.
The Brexit derby to decide the World Cup. Kev, before we let you go, we just want to play you a quick video of some karaoke and an England legend.
Here we go, the build-up. Jambalite set moya, yeah, jumbo raise the party, away go. Oh, jambalite set moya, yeah, jumbo, eat the breadstick. Oh, yeah, we're gonna have a party all night long. All night long. Good out. All night long.
Alan Shearer there singing into a breadstick for all our audio listeners this morning. Kev, is Alan Shearer the best of the lot when it comes to the karaoke singers in the BBC?
He does love it. He says I'm the best, but no, he's not bad, Alan. He's quite good actually. Yeah, he does love it. He does love it. He does a good. What's the one by I can't think of the song now. Sex is on Fire. Who sings that? Oh, you know that one. Kings of Leon. There you go. Kings of Leon. Sex on Fire. He doesn't mean one of those as well, actually. Yeah. So it's. I come at the back end of that party on Saturday night. So yeah, he was well on at that stage when I got back in. Yeah.
Good stuff, Kev. Enjoyed the reacclimatisation to this part of Europe again, and good to have you on this morning.
Cheers, lads. All the best. Take it easy.
Kevin Kilbane there live from his kitchen in Manchester. Kev's Kitchen will be a fixture again on Friday mornings for the next couple of weeks. We do want to chat a little bit more about GAA now, just to round the show off. But I just remind you that OTB AM is live this morning with thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. We did want to give a specific mention to Roscommon because of their performance at the weekend. You saw them in the flesh. You spoke a little bit about them already at the top of the show. And just looking at Kevin Mack's day after the game, he looked like a man who just come home from Vietnam or something. He was absolutely rattled. It was amazing. It just summed up what an amazing game it was.
Yeah, he's normally not a guy who's too stuck for words, but I heard an interview with him afterwards and he was just breathless.
Yeah.
But that was the sort of game that it was. I don't think they'll get the same level of openness against the other teams in the Super 8s. I mean, the first half against Armagh went mad to man with one extra man at the back, and the amount of line breaks that came from their half-back line and their midfield, where they just went past one man and suddenly they're soloing into 40 yards of space. This is the thing about the Super 8s. You look at it and you could make a case for any of them. You really could. And it's so hard to stick your neck out and say this team is going to be there, that team is going to be there. Maybe bar Dublin and Kerry, because I think everyone is in an agreement that they probably have looked the strongest of the bunch so far. Even without Dublin setting the world alight, you just know there's something else in the tank there. But yeah, Roscommon, can they come down off the high of winning a game that was that frantic in that heat and it wasn't over until the 72nd minute when they got the second goal. That's their challenge this week.
Yeah, going to play Dublin in Croke Park as well. It just kind of looms large on the horizon, and obviously Tyrone as their neutral game isn't the easiest.
No, they've drawn a tough group. Tough group.
Yeah, and I'd worry about them as Michael says about the. They're a team that likes to play football. So when they come up against, the way Armagh had to set up at certain times, they're fine with that because they're very good runners, but then they've excellent runners off the ball, and they're very good at when they come into contact to just stop and they try to slip a hand past the fellas coming off their shoulder. The worry is if they have to break down a very stubborn defence. I don't think that if they do that and then a team will counter-attack them, I don't think their defence is what it is cracked up to be. I think their forward unit is a bit stronger. I would just worry about, it's kind of one of, well, if you score 12, we'll score 14 type thing. I think if it comes to, an arm wrestle and they're having to rely on their defence, because a lot of the forwards as well, they're forwards. They're not necessarily guys who are saying, no, actually I'm happy enough to drop back into a defensive line and stay down there. They like to be up forward. They like to be, on the ball, taking shots, having a go. So I would worry about them from that aspect.
I think, the form guide for them is the Connacht final at the moment, where Galway have in the same fashion that Tyrone have done, have refined their defensive structure, and Roscommon found it difficult in the second half, especially to get into a position where their forwards can cause damage.
Yeah,
and the problem for them, as you're saying, is if they concede 117 or 118 against Tyrone, are they going to get more than that?
Yeah,
against a team that is really, they're so disciplined. They're just not giving you the space. It's like Armagh kept 5 forwards up. I looked at a couple of stages of the first half, and they had 4 and 5 forwards in the opposition half. And as a forward down the far end, the amount more space you get in that situation is huge. And like their forward play yesterday was superb. 3 wides, 222, and scores all over the field. Can they replicate that against a team that's condensed into 45 and breaking at pace? That's the question for them.
The other team we wanted to chat about, because I have got to mention this morning, is Monaghan. Like the big question with them, there's been 2 big questions with them over the last couple of years, really, hasn't there? It's like, do they have any other scoring threat outside Conor McManus, and can they finally end their Croke Park duck? And they seem to have answered one of those questions. Like Jack McCarran and Conor McCarthy have now allowed them to form an inside line, which is pretty lethal.
Yeah, but the thing about Monaghan is, and I know it's tough to say it, but they've come off the back of, in the qualifiers, have they had the same tests that the rest of the teams have had? Probably not. I mean, it was 4 points against Laois, but Graham Brodie pulled off 6 unbelievable saves. It could have been a hell of a lot more. Have they got the same test that Roscommon got, that Tyrone got against Meath, that those sort of teams, they've kind of fell into a Super 8s, and albeit they'll be happy enough, they haven't had to, really go to the well yet. They've 3 weekends. And they seem like a team to me that's actually much better playing against teams who are considered better than them, where they can really rise up against it. And they'll be an interesting proponent. As we've said, though, first weekend against Kildare, that is the pinnacle game for them. They have to win. Yeah. Same way Kildare do.
Let's see, who are you thinking of winning these games then? So it's Kerry against Galway, Kildare against Monaghan, Dublin against Donegal, and Tyrone against Roscommon. We can see that on screen. Anthony, who are you picking here?
Yeah, the Kerry-Galway game is going to be a fascinating game, purely because we just haven't seen that much of either team. Again, it'll be, well, who's coming in with the better form. I tip my hat, obviously, to Kerry there. I think Kildare will beat Monaghan. I agree with Michael. I just don't think they've had any of the tests that some of the other has, and if Kildare have had. I think confidence-wise, Kildare will be much, much, much better. The Donegal-Dublin game, I think, is an absolutely... That is a really, really interesting game. Because, again, everyone expects Dublin that they'll be able to go up the gears. But Donegal have massively impressed me. They've massively, massively impressed me. Okay, a couple of injuries will hamper them. Obviously, McBurty's one is a massive, massive, massive loss, considering how, the way he was going. He was in his pomp. He was just playing absolutely brilliant, and he was a great foil. And Murphy and himself were working really, really well. But this is. That is one that I think could cause Dublin real problems. I think Donegal will have the gander up about the whole thing of not being able to play at home. They'll have a bit of a cause. It's just going to be. I think that's going to be an absolutely brilliant, brilliant game, and I think it's going to potentially set a marker down that other teams, even if Donegal lose, that they may follow. Because I think Donegal have changed this. I think Donegal have changed their way of playing, specifically coming in to play Dublin and Croke Park. That ability to kick the ball, to have massive pace coming from their back line. And with the McHughes, and I tell you, Dublin will always remember Donegal of the last number of years, because if ever there was a team who have the ability to turn them over, Donegal have it.
You're picking Dublin?
Yeah. Just.
I think Dublin, Donegal's game and what they've developed this year under Colin Bonner, who's done Declan Bonner, who's done a fantastic job, is who has gone the tightest with Dublin in the last 2 or 3 years is Mayo, and it was huge physicality and being able to play man on man and have a go, have a proper go at them. Because as we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years as well, if you sit off and give them the ball, they'll hurt you. They just have too much threats. You have to be able to go neck and neck with them. You have to be able to hit 118, 119 against them, and that's what Donegal have been building towards. Can they find the scores that McBrearty was giving them earlier in the championship? And it's a wicked shame that he's not going to be playing in the Super 8s, because he's arguably been the standout footballer of the whole championship so far. And we wish him well. Obviously, it's a tough ask to come back from a cruise ship, especially. And this time of the year is tough. You've built yourself up. You get to the summer. You rarely see that sort of injury in the summer. It's normally something that you might see during the league or maybe in pre-season training when your body isn't as conditioned, and it's a big disappointment. I do take your point. I think if someone wants to take Dublin out this year, they have to be able to go neck and neck with them. Kerry have been building towards it. They've been trying out 2 or 3 different things in Munster that they try to squeeze against Clare's kickouts that I'm sure they're trying to go after Cluxton in that regard. They did a similar thing a couple of years ago in the semi-final and got about 2-4 off it. But the fresher provincial teams have a huge advantage when it'll get to week 3.
Yeah, big time.
And if it's coming down the line, then they would be hoping that their legs will carry them through, I would say.
So final one then, Roscommon against Tyrone.
I think Tyrone will just squeeze the life out of that game and they'll win it in a very, very tight affair.
Tyrone. So you're going Tyrone, Dublin, Kildare, Kerry. Any disagreements there, Michael?
I think the only one that would be different to that, I think Galway. I think Galway could. I think that's going to be the tightest game of the weekend. Last year they went to Croke Park and they had no belief, I don't think, that they could go and beat Kerry in a quarter-final. And I think the difference that they've shown since that game to this game, they're like a completely different team. And the way they play will really put Kerry to the test. They probably won't be able to get the ball as quickly into their inside forward line, who can do huge damage. And that's the game I'm looking forward to the most. I mean, you're looking at 4 games there that are probably evens, 11-10, all of them.
Yeah.
Maybe the Tyrone one, you might get a bit longer odds on Roscommon, perhaps, but there's going to be nothing in any of them. That's the only one that I could see maybe a small bit tighter than the rest. But I'd probably agree with the four predictions.
Yeah, I'd slightly disagree because I thought Galway would be a bit more impressive, and I think Walsh has decided that he's got over games. You know, like, I mean, it's fine and well having his setup and having his strategy for the Connacht, but I think he's got over games in that they've contained and then they've kind of broken and they've upped the gears at certain times. You can't do that against Kerry. You know, they're going to have to score, and they're going to have to score big because Kerry will score, and you know, it's the space afforded, you know, on the field will suit Kerry. So when you bring that game plan into Croke Park, that's a whole different kettle of fish then, you know. And my only worry is they've always lacked a bit of belief about beating Kerry. You know, they've always struggled against Kerry.
I think they went to Tralee during the league and really squeezed Kerry.
Yeah.
The problem is we just don't know how good Kerry are at the moment. Yeah. And that's why these games are going to be just so good to watch, because you're finally going to get to a stage of knowing where a team is at. You're not going to end the championship and go, do you know what, they could have beaten someone else who was in the other side. You're going to either do your business or you're not. Yeah,
it's going to be fantastic stuff. Just a final word before we wrap up this morning. Donncha O'Connor's announced his retirement from Cork football. It's obviously another departure from that 2010 team. A fantastic servant, probably because of the toughness of the Munster Championship from a Cork perspective, always struggling to get past Kerry, and then subsequently the knock-on effect of that in the All-Ireland stages. Could you say that he was an underrated talent?
Definitely. I mean, as an inside forward, he went about his business without too much fanfare. You turn around, you think you're keeping him quiet, and suddenly he's 3 points on the board.
Yeah.
He was remarkably accurate from the right-hand corner for a right-legged kicker. I could never get over it that, regardless of the angle on that side, he was always getting that point across his body, which is really tough, a really tough kick. And he was one of the main reasons that they won the All-Ireland in 2010. He's been a great servant to Cork. He's 37 years of age. He's been, even since, like, he was in his 30s or coming to his late 20s when they won that, and has continued, obviously been involved when they brought through a lot of young fellas in the last couple of years, and it would have been easy for him to step away, and I think he'll be sorely missed there.
You need to get him involved really, and in the backroom team of some setup in Cork.
Yeah, he's great. I've marked him a few times. Excellent, as Michael said, but actually a very tough individual too. He didn't shirk anything, and he was a good talker on the field. He was a very good organizer, and he was a talisman for them. He was a bit of a spiritual leader there for a number of years, but again, without a lot of fanfare. Fellas would be kind of like, you'd nearly kind of forget about him, if you were just thinking of as a fan. But I'd say on the Cork team sheet, he was one of the first men down for many a year. He was an excellent player, and I think probably it's a good thing and it's a bad thing that at 37 he was still there. But I mean, it's personally it was a great thing for himself, but from a Cork perspective, that they kind of nearly had to go to him even when anything was going wrong. He was nearly the first fella between himself and Kerrigan, he was the first, nearly the two fellas that they pulled off the bench. But listen, that's a whole different conversation about Cork and Cork football and where it's going. But no, best of luck to him, and he's had a super career.
Absolutely, ditto to that, and we will get more into the Cork story, I dare say, over the next couple of weeks and months. Michael, thank you very much for coming in this morning. Good to have your company in studio. Anthony, as always, thanks a million for popping in. More on all of the weekend's action coming up this evening on Off the Ball on the radio and on all the digital platforms from 7 o'clock. Gerald will be back in the hot seat tomorrow morning from 7:45 with his stories from the Vendée region and everything else besides from the Tour de France. We'll chat to you then. Bye bye for now.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.